Welcome to the Critical Focus channel and today's battle report between the Gorechosen of Dromm and the Headsmen'S Curse. This is a voiced over battle report because I had my kids in the background here and they were playing quite lively and quite loudly so, and I wouldn't want to shut them down, so I just decided let's just play a game, let's speak Swedish, and then I'll add the voiceover later. The Gorechosen has added in a couple of cards from the Tooth and Claw, some essential card pack cards, and some universals from the Nethermaze Harrowdeep collection. I'm using a couple of cards from the Beastman Assault, as well as a lot of cards from the essential card pack and other sources as well. So hope to see a good game here. Make sure to like the video, hit that bell button, leave a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Happy watching. So, winning this first roll-off here, Matthias opted for me to have the first activation. And my first activation was to sharpen the blade, or wet the blade as it's called, raising the adjacent leader's damage output by 1 via a wet ed counter. And then in the power step I played Death Soldiers, which allows me to have a reaction during an attack action that targets a friendly fighter after the attack roll, and then I will have -1 damage for that attack action. Pretty strong Grand Alliance Death card. And then in Matthias' first activation, he charges forward with a Gorechosen, getting 1 success there with a sword. And I get no successes, so I take 3 damage, and he gets a Blood Tithe counter. But I use that Death Soldiers to reduce to 2, as to not be in basically kill range from the leader and Herax, which are yet to charge. Then in my second activation I use the Wielder of the Blade to charge forward with that damage boost, and also increase accuracy here with Hold Them Still, which is played after friendly fight's move action. And then I can choose another friendly fighter to make a move action to be adjacent to the same enemy fighter. So I have single swords and hammers, and I roll 2 swords. Very, very sad, as you can see here. And then Matthias plays Call of Blood to add insult to injury, pushing his leader into 2-range territory from my leader, with single assist set up very nicely there from my fail attack, and also pushes the Gorechosen closer as well. Very bad spot for me here. Then I play Roaming Witness to choose a friendly Chain Rasp and remove that chosen fighter from the battlefield and place it in an ed checks. Then if I am adjacent to an enemy fighter after that placement, the adjacent enemy fighter or fighters takes a condemned counter. So that's what happens there. Then Matthias plays Brazened Edge Fury to get a reroll for the next attack here with Dromm. Rolling a crit and a single support. It's doable to defend, but very hard. And I get 2 shields and I'm on dodges, so that means I am down to my last wound already with my leader. In the third activation I use the Scriptor of the Sentence to try to put a wound and a condemned counter on his leader. I get a crit there, and he only rolls a dodge, which isn't even a success for him. So the condemned happens regardless if the attack is successful or not. But I also wanted to push him away as I don't have free swings there with his leader. And sadly though, he scores Untouchable Fury by me doing so, because I don't kill him with an attack action basically. Pretty strong search card there. And then Herax charges up to finish off that poor sharpener and rolls double crits. It's defendable on 2 dice. Can I pull the double crit out? No, not even close. And my kind of free kill fighter dies, and he also scores Savage Slaughter from killing someone with a beast or corn fighter. Very strong Grand Alliance card for this particular warband, obviously. And then in my last activation, I simply move the bearer of the block up. Just to have him be able to do something in the next round. Then in his last activation, Dromm charges up to finish off my leader. Now on 3 dice, but he rolls 3 double supports. Quite weak. Then he pulls out Great Strength to increase Gorehulk's damage output to 4. Maybe that was a redundant call, because my bearer of the block was already on 3 wounds basically here, from him pinging me there with that card. And then end phase comes along and I score Judge lest he be judged, for having moved and or charge on every fighter. Pretty straightforward, simple hand phase there, but I don't score anything else. I'm not in a great spot, and he scores the same card basically from the Tooth and Claw rival deck. He also scores Worship in Battle for having blood tithe counters on. Two friendly fights and every friendly fighter being within 1 hex of no one's territory. I think it's something like that. Then roll off round 2 and he wins that as well. Bad news for me and my leader, of course. Especially given the search card I was holding in my hand here. So his high profile attack here with 3 swords gets all misses again. And that means I score Quick to Judge, which is scored immediately after an activation step if there's a friendly leader and there are 2 condemned enemy fighters. So very lucky for me there to get back in the game. But then he plays Blood Boil to choose a fighter within 2 hexes of a friendly fighter and ping them basically. Strong ping guard there, and that's 2 glory for him because I'm a large fighter. Then I play Condemned Step Forward, which switcheroo needs 2 fighters, at least 1 from an enemy warband. And then each enemy fighter chosen by that ploy gets a condemned counter, which means I get condemned on Herax as well, so now all of his fighters have condemned counters. Then Matthias reacts to that by playing Duel of Wits, so he draws 2 power cards. And I play Glorious Seeker and Heavy Duty on the bearer of the block, which is now up to a whooping 4 damage with his attack. And then I try to attack Herax there. I can't really get rid of his single assist, but I get a crit and a success, and he's on single defense there. So he dies, and I get a glory. And I also score Bound in Servitude for killing someone with a Chain Rasp, which is 3 out of 4 fighters. Then he plays Glory Seeker on the Gorehulk and also Center of Attention on my bearer and pushes the Gorehulk closer to him. Then he uses Dromm to get no successes again, so that's his 3rd or 4th total miss with Dromm. That's quite amazing. Then I charge up with the Scriptor to attack a trapped Dromm here, because Dromm does not have any adjacent hexes that are further away from the attacker. And since I have 1 success and he has 1 success, that means I add a success to this roll and he thus take his damage. Then Dromm finally gets a success via that single assist, and I don't pull the success off. But it took 4 attacks from Dromm to do something useful. Then Matthias fears that Dromm might die soon and plays Army of 1 on the Gorehulk, giving +1 defense and +1 dice once he's the last surviving fighter. And then I play You Must Serve and replace a Chain Rasp on a Sorting Hex in my territory, which is the bearer of the block, which now does 4 damage. And thus I, in my next activation, try to kill off Dromm and I get a crit. And he does not, so Dromm is taken out of action. So Bearer of the Block really pulls his weight here, and I get back in the game, so get 2 glory from the kill, and 1 glory from Heads will roll for getting my 3rd condemned counter, because I got 2 from that one. 1 because he was a condemned fighter, and 1 from being a large fighter, so that was my 3rd condemned counter. So it's 9-7 here. So I inspire my remaining fighters here. And then he charges up with a army of 1 buffed Gorechosen. So he's actually on 3 swords then. Gets a sword. But my crit stops his massive damage output there. But he scores Embraced Savagery from having only Savage Fighters on the board. Quite easy to do with 3-man warband, especially when you are down to your last fighter, obviously. So 10-7. And then he plays Dark Darts to have a ranged option for the Gorechosen. Then we move into the 2nd end phase. And I score quite heavily here, Lengthening Shadows for having more fighters in enemy territory than there were enemy fighters in enemy territory. And then I also score Savoring the Inevitable for a friendly fighter adjacent to someone being condemned, basically. And I also score quite heavily here the Triumph of Death for 3 glory. If there are 1 of you surviving enemy fighters and 2 or more surviving friendly fighters. Quite clutch there. So I am actually in the lead here. And then he sadly gets that roll off as well. And attacks with Gorechosen on the bear. Gets 2 successes now. And I only pull out 1 success there. So he's taken out of action. Gorechosen inspires. He scores a glory for the kill. I score taking advantage for having at least as many friendly fights in enemy territory as there are enemy fights in enemy territory. Which you can also get 1 extra if you score it in the first round, but it's not the first round. And he scores a brutal reckoning for killing someone out of action with a fighter with blood tithe or wounds. And then he plays Wrath Incarnate to get all of the effects. So it's on +1 damage there. Which means he basically does 3 or 4 damage even with his throttle. So the throttle is more accurate. So it's a very good choice to use that attack as of now. I play Job Satisfaction on the scripter, which means I can get a guard token after I attack with him. And he plays Great Fortitude. So I think it's up to 7 wounds here. I play Guided Blows to have a reroll on the scripter. And he plays Gifted Mutation, so he's up to 8 wounds. And I play Enduring Executor to be on 4 wounds, but doesn't really help me. And he plays Unfazed to have +1 defense while adjacent to 1 fighter, since he's a brawler. And then I pull off a crit to attack, and I get a guard token for the trouble. And he also crits and successes in defense there, so no effect. But I get a guard token at least. Then he charges forth with this much buffed Gorechosen. Uses the throttle, gets 2 successes there. It has Ensnare, so sadly that would have been 2 successes from having dodge and gloom, but the Ensnare really got me there, sadly. And then it's just a matter of salvaging cards, changing out objectives and so on and so forth. In the end phase he scores a worthy offering. 1 glory. And I don't score anything, so the tiebreaker goes to the Gorechosen, sadly, because he has surviving fighters and I don't. So, quite the game there. Took a lot of turns back and forth, but was really enjoyable. I thought I was going to have a much tougher time with my leader being in such a precarious position already in the beginning there. I had a good chance to have a great start there, but that double sword really hurt my game plan, and also losing the roll-off in every round obviously hurt, but I'm not taking anything away from Matthias here. He played a good game, so no hard feelings. So if you have enjoyed this game, make sure to like this video, comment on it, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that bell button as not miss out any further content from the channel. So without further ado, take care.